choices I've made.
Y'all ever hear a voice so true it'll stop you in your tracks, like a freight train hitting the brakes on a hot July night? That's George Jones. Pull up a chair. Tonight we're walking with the Possum, the man who turned heartbreak into high art and honky-tonks into confessionals. George Glenn Jones came into this world on September 12, 1931, down in Saratoga, Texas, raised up in the Big Thicket with a gospel piano on Sundays and a radio tuned to the Opry on Saturday nights. He left home early, sang on little stations around Beaumont, and in January of 1954 cut his first record in a living room studio with egg crates on the walls to catch the sound. It wasn't pretty, but you could already hear that thing, that broken glass beauty in his voice that made even tough men hush. By 55, he'd hit with Why Baby Why, and 4 years later, he lit the fuse with White Lightning, written by his buddy J.P., the Big Bopper, Richardson. That one was a barn burner, guitars poppin', George hiccupin', and grinning his way to his first #1. It kicked the door open for one of the longest chart runs anybody's ever seen. Now, George never did chase polish. He chased truth. When he sang She Thinks I Still Care in April of '62, that low tremble on the word still cut clean through the air like a blue norther. 6 weeks at the top told the story. America recognized a voice that could crack a teacup and mend a heart, all in the same line. Let's put our boots in Nashville for a minute. George was an Opry man, inducted August 25, 1956, and he lived for that circle, rhymin' boards creakin', pews filled with folks who knew the difference between a put-on and the real thing. George was the real thing. He carried that truth into the studio too. Columbia Studio B, Bradley's Quonset hut, places where the neon hum of Music Row met the sound of a man telling the hardest parts of his own story. And he had company, duets and dust-ups, most famously with Tammy Wynette. They married on February 16, 1969. Two mighty voices, one fiery home. Out of the sparks came songs that still shuffle across every Texas dance floor. We're Gonna Hold On in '73 and Golden Ring in '76, two rings that fit even after the vows didn't. They divorced in 1975, hurt on both sides, but they never quit singing together. Country music's a funny kind of church. Sometimes the hymn is the only way two people can stand in the same room. George could be rowdy as a spring creek, and he could be reckless too. The man earned his No-Show Jones nickname the hard way. Too many missed dates, too many demons hitching a ride. There's a story that lives like a tall tale, but came right out of George's own mouth. Back when he lived outside Beaumont with his second wife, Shirley, she hid every set of car keys to keep him from going to town for liquor. George just looked out at the yard, saw that riding lawnmower, and putt-putted 8 miles down the road to the package store at about 5 miles an hour. Only George Jones could turn a John Deere into a getaway car. The turn came, and it came hard. On March 6, 1999, outside Nashville, George crashed his SUV and nearly didn't make it. He walked out of that hospital sober and stayed that way. And wouldn't you know it, right then he cut Choices, a gut punch ballad that let him stare his past in the eye. When the CMA asked for a shortened version on TV, he said no. Alan Jackson, mid-performance, slipped George's chorus right into live national television. A quiet, country way of saying respect your elders. But if you want the mountaintop, it's 1980. He stopped loving her today. Billy Sherrill's country politan strings and that lonesome spoken word bit. No tricks, just George telling the saddest story anybody ever told in 3 minutes. It brought him back after a long dark spell and won him awards enough to fill a sideboard. More important, it gave the world a measure. When folks say the greatest country song, they reach for that one first. Ask any writer who ever brought a cheat sheet to a co-write, if George Jones sings your words, you better sit down. There's plenty more road stories. George could laugh at himself. He even filmed videos poking fun at that infamous mower. He wore sharp nudie suits, loved a Telecaster biting through a slow shuffle, and never lost that East Texas drawl that made darlin' sound like a prayer. He toured steady, and his last run was billed like an old friend coming by to say goodbye. His final show came April 6, 2013, in Knoxville. A few weeks later, on April 26th, Nashville went quiet. They laid him to rest after a memorial at the Opry House where Alan Jackson stood in that circle and sang the song George Made Immortal. What did he leave? More than 160 charting singles across 5 decades, a style everyone tried to copy and nobody could. Proof that plain talk, sung honest, outlives fashion. He showed us that country music isn't about perfection, it's about telling the truth pretty. So here's the takeaway. Neighbor to neighbor, George Jones reminds us that a voice can be both a mirror and a map. It shows you who you are and it shows you where to go from here. If that means walking through the grand tour of an empty house or firing up a lawnmower when life hides your keys, then you tell it plain and sing it right. That's country. If you love stories like this, tap that like button, hit subscribe, and share us with someone who still keeps a stack of 45s by the turntable. We've got plenty more porch light tales where this came from.